Okay, great. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 9th event of our so-called Impact Investor Circle Geneva SUC series, which was launched in November last year under the theme Improving Access to Capital for SMEs in Africa in general, with a specific focus on the SADC region. After having covered in the previous 8 episodes the most important players in the Zambian impact investing ecosystem, with a particular focus on market enablers and suppliers of impact capital, it gives me great pleasure to start the second series, which will focus on impact investing ecosystem across Africa, which my colleague, Mr. Peter Chinto, will highlight at the end of today's event. You might wonder why we have decided to start looking at Tanzania, and there's a number of reasons for that. Firstly, it was the first non-Zambian African country where our companies 4IP Group and Impactpreneur Africa provided impact investing advisory services in the form of a due diligence assignment of the diversified agricultural conglomerate export trading group ETG on behalf of the CDC group in both Zambia, Malawi, and also in Tanzania. This contributed to eventually, this contribution eventually led to a 100 million debt commitment to ETG to support the growth of ETG's food and agricultural business, and it will help ETG strengthen food value chains by expanding its logistic networks, boosting agricultural yield, and the production of stable foods such as grains, rice, and cocoa. The 100 million capital that CDC group provided to ETG marks one of the largest corporate debt investment in CDC's history. The 100 million commitment also contributes to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals number 2, zero hunger, and number 8, decent work and economic growth. Another reason why I'm excited to be virtually in Tanzania today is that at the regional level, East Africa has recorded the highest economic growth in Africa in the past decade. And on top of that, Tanzania is projected to be amongst the 10 fastest growing economies globally in 2020-2021. And finally, contrary to Zambia, Tanzania is much larger, and it's more than 3 times larger than the population in Zambia, with 55 million people, present a significant consumer base for various goods and services, which should make Tanzania an attractive impact investing destination, as our 4 excellent speakers probably will let you know very shortly as we start. This is a live session, as I told you. It's being recorded and will be uploaded on both 4IP Groups and the Swiss Impact Investing Association's YouTube channels before the end of this week. And it will be shared with all prospective and actual impact investors investing in EAC, the East Africa Economic Community, and in Tanzania, in the hope that through them, their investment will assist Tanzania impact enterprises to scale a solution for sustainable development goals, thereby contributing to shifting Tanzania towards a more sustainable impact state. Today, we thank all of you attending the event in real time, and those of you who will be with us afterwards by listening to the video and watching the video, for your indispensable support by being here today. Let me quickly present you the house rules. Please turn off your microphone whenever you're not speaking throughout the entire event, in order not to disturb the speakers as well as the presenters and the listeners. And also during the Q&A, remember to introduce yourself by name and affiliation and keep the questions short. And please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and to raise pertinent questions that we'll seek to answer during the Q&A. Okay. So this is the agenda today. Okay, so after this short introduction, my colleague, Mr. Hagai Chumba, who is a program manager of the National Advisory Board for Impact Investing in Zambia, will give you a short overview of the experiences that we have had in Zambia in terms of promoting the impact investing movement and revolution in Zambia. And after that, we'll have 4 successive short presentations by leading stakeholders and practitioners within the Tanzanian impact investing ecosystem. And following those presentations, there will be an opportunity for the audience to raise questions for further elaboration. And finally, my colleague, Mr. Peter Chintu, will briefly conclude, as well as give you a very brief overview of our so-called ESG toolkit, as well as the coming events. So, Peter, is Hagai with us?
No, not yet.
He's not there. Okay. Did he say when he was going to arrive?
Yeah, he told me that he'll be joining shortly.
Okay. I think in the interest of time, you let me know when Hagai is there, and we will just move on to the first part of today's event. We saw the presentations. So we'll start with Mr. Gerald Megesi David. He's Tanzania Country Program Manager of the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. Mr. David, over to you for a 7-minute presentation. Peter, is he with us? David?
No, David is not yet here.
Okay, I can see that Hagai is there. So if you can just admit Hagai. So let's maybe, I know I've been in Dar es Salaam a number of times, so I know that traffic can be somewhat of a nightmare. So maybe he's late, sitting in traffic. So let's start with Hagai. Hagai, if you're ready, please go ahead. Hagai?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just want to share one slide which I can speak to, if you can just allow me to do so. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Hagai. We can see the slide.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be quite very brief, since I only have 5 minutes, less than that actually. So my name is Hagai, and from the Zambia National Advisory Board. So I just want to get specifically into it. In terms of what's our key role in building the ecosystem in Zambia, and what we've done so far. So basically, our mandate is to mobilize resources and stakeholders to create a private-led impact economy. We've started sometime in 2019. We're a member of the global steering ecosystem movements around the globe. And our work really in Zambia has been around building stakeholders ecosystem through working with various stakeholders. We've been working with, so these screen you're sitting on just there is just like 5 key stakeholders that we work with, which constitute the ecosystem. So our work is mainly around the supply. Within the supply, we're working on interventions that allow increasing and diversifying the supply of impact investment capital in Zambia. And we've got various initiatives that we are supporting. As a market facilitator, we do not compete with stakeholders within the ecosystem, but we create synergies, pathways to collaborate in increasing or scaling the impact investment market. We also do work with the demand side, and within the demand side is around which kind of broking the flow of impact capital to businesses, and mostly around early stage businesses. The market in Zambia is concentrated still to the early stage businesses, and they have good problem with the size of the projects, but also the readiness. So our intervention around this side is around how can we support, work with the stakeholders in terms of promoting capacity of fund managers, as well as those who work with businesses, especially the market builders, to enhance their capacity. We also do work with the market enablers and intermediaries, and these are vehicles that link supply and demand. But also most of our work is around the policy. Since policy is the key enabler for impact investment, and our work around this side is really creating a conducive environment through advocacy activities that enhances impact investment. So our work has evolved since we launched the National Advisory Board in 2019. Our work first was around how do we convince stakeholders, how do we raise awareness? Impact investment has been a very, very new concept, especially in Africa, but also globally. And the first thing that we started working on is how do we convince stakeholders and raise awareness about impact investment, but also presenting a business case for impact, especially from the policy side. So our work was around agitating in terms of correct and convincing stakeholders, providing knowledge, insights through research to inform stakeholders in terms of what are the existing opportunities, what are the barriers, and how can we convince stakeholders to build the ecosystem. But we've evolved since to orchestrating initiatives that are aimed at influencing policy and building the ecosystem. And over the past few years, we are working with the government in terms of influencing policies that attract or that could enhance impact investment in the country. And recently, we are in the innovative space. Within here now, we are doing more than orchestrating, but also supporting the market ecosystem in terms of building, designing pathways and innovative facilities which are enhancing the flow of capital, but also which are creating impact in the economy. And we're working with various stakeholders, from pension funds to the central bank, in designing facilities that would enhance flow of capital, but also mobilize local capital within Zambia, but also outside to scale the market. Creation of partnership is also one thing that we've now been focusing on in terms of how do we create partnerships for impact, especially those that are designing or really working on initiatives that are within our strategic plan that are aimed at scaling the market. So these are kind of three broad overview of how we evolved since the formation of the task force and the National Advisory Board in 2019. I thank you, Christian. I think that's where I end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Hagai. Okay, so we move on to part one, which is, as I said, we get a 4 different perspectives on what the impact investing landscape looks like in Tanzania. So the first speaker should normally be Gerald Megesi David, the Tanzania Country Program Manager of the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. David, are you with us now?
Well, unfortunately, not yet.
Okay, so we move on to the second speaker, Mrs. Amne Swedi. She's an entrepreneur and advisor for Africa Investments. Mrs. Swedi, are you with us? Peter, you see, I can't see the list, so. Okay, I guess there's a problem with the. Peter, you see there? If not,
no.
Okay, she's not there. So we have 2 speakers who are not with us yet. Let's move on to the third speaker and hope that the others will join us. Mr. Kiko Kiwanga, are you with us?
Yeah, sure, I'm here.
Okay, so please, over to you.
All right.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Please go ahead.
I hope I have access to share my screen, right?
Okay, so we give you. Okay, you can share your screen now.
All right. Okay.
Please go ahead, Kiko. If,
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Is my screen visible there?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead,
All
please.
right, great. This is Kiko Kiwanga, and I'm founder of Tautic. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to discuss the question you see in front of you. So I'm going to put some highlights with regard to this question. So I have done some research when I was preparing for this presentation, and I have realized some key issues that will be really important to make this happen. So the question, as you can see there, is what can be done to support and increase the role of enablers in Dar es Salaam to enable Tanzania to attract more impact venture capital funds to the country? Yeah, with respect to this question, so I have done some research with respect to other ecosystems globally and see what made them flourish and thrive as compared to Tanzanian ecosystem, which I can say is still very young, but it has a very great potential considering we have a very youthful and talented population, which you could capitalize on and see Tanzania get to its right place. And he mentioned also our population also is big and is supporting us. The numbers are opening for the African market. So I believe if we consider these 4 points, actually, just 4 major points that I have highlighted here. So the first one is to make it easy to be found. What I mean by this is like for the and I have done research. We have a local one-stop shop, which is already in place actually, and it was a great work done by.
Sorry, Kiko, we can't hear you. You have a very bad connection. Kiko? Kiko, your connection is very bad. We can't hear you. Okay, we even lost the connection. Okay, so I guess the internet connection not so good in Dar es Salaam today. I don't know if there's stormy weather as we have up here in Central Europe. Maybe while he sort out his connection problem, we can go to one of the other speakers. Do we have any of the other speakers? Mr. Salum Awa, the CEO of SSC Capital, is he with us?
Yes, he's here with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need any slides, or is it?
Yeah, maybe I can just share one slide.
Okay, so I'll make you the co-host. Voilà, please go ahead.
Do I need any introductions?
Please introduce yourself in a few words before you start.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Salum Awadi. I'm a founder and CEO of SSC Capital, which is an investment banking firm based out of Dar es Salaam. We've been in the market for 11 years now, but we have also moved into private equity in the venture capital space. So we work in such areas. And one of the things we are currently doing is we are raising our first impact fund of $5 million. We are also in the crowdfunding space as well. So those are things we do in the market. Of course, we operate across East Africa. I've been mostly involved in this market, especially in trying to see what we can do in building the ecosystem. In 2018, I was a founding member of the Tanzania Angel Investors Network to see how we could unlock investments into early stage startups in Tanzania.
But we also launched Tanzania Venture Capital Network, which is a platform. It's a non-member based platform that we set up largely to see what we need to do from the policy perspective on attracting more private equity money coming to Tanzania. So I was contacted by Kiko to share my thoughts on the overall policy framework. I think Amne, who was supposed to speak before me, will be in a better position to speak on this. And I asked Kiko for me to speak around the role of intermediaries, because we have been an intermediary for a long time. But no worries, I can just share my few thoughts on what we see in the market currently. So when it comes to impact investment, actually, first of all, I think we have to accept that it's quite a new concept to many players in the ecosystem. Leave aside the larger players such as CDS who have been in the market probably for a while. But many young startups, many players who are in the market currently don't know much about that, including the government itself. So first of all, there is no any specific framework that really defines whether an impact investment or a social enterprise. What are the metrics to define it? What sort of treatment, whether that has either from the tax perspective or any types of compliance that we have in the market, and no any exemptions if someone does much better. I understand, of course, if you were to do some businesses in some sectors such as renewable energy, healthcare, there are some tax exemptions, but not necessarily in the context of impact investment. But those are the areas where probably we can build on and leverage in the next step. And what we need to do is currently, so in Tanzania we currently have the Startup Association, which was established as a platform to see, the startup community has sort of a mouthpiece to engage with the government, especially in the legal and regulatory environment. And one of the act. Like what we have seen in other markets, such as Tunisia, Senegal, and I think Kenya is moving to the same direction as well, Ghana. So we are pushing for Startup Act. And one of the things we are trying to see to be done in the Act is to have a clear definition of a social enterprise impact investment. What are these and what sort of a treatment we want from the government. So that's one thing that is already happening now in the market. Secondly, I think given the existing legal and regulatory framework that we have, if we want to have any special treatment for impact investments / social enterprises from the startup perspective, I think we need to define what exactly we want from that. And I believe there are many stakeholders now in the market that are currently working on pushing and reforming the environment to be suitable, especially for investments and the startup community in general. So I think we just need to define what exactly we want. And I think you can just build on that and work with stakeholders that we already have in the market. This year, UNDP launched a program called Funguo, which seeks to unlock social capital for early stage startups, as well as trying to see what they can do to improve the overall business environment, especially around impact. The same with the Swiss embassies, also trying to do something around the same area. So those are some of the updates, because that's what I was asked to do when I was contacted, just to share some insights on what's happening in the market in terms of the legal policy framework for impact investment. So this is what we see in the market. I don't know whether we have colleagues in the room that probably might see what I've missed out, that might contribute during Q&A, but these few things that I wanted to share for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Salom Awa. It was very insightful and useful. And while you were speaking, we had one of our presenters joining the event. So without any further ado, would like to give the word to Mr. Joel Megesi David. So over to you. If you need to share your slide, let us know and we can make you a co-host.
Hi, Christian. Thanks a lot, and apologies a bit late joining the meeting. down in the road, so internet is just a struggle. So thanks. I've just catch a little bit of what Salom was presenting while I joined the meeting. But yeah,
do you have any slides you want to share, or you just will talk? Hello? Guess we have a very bad connection with Tanzania today. I don't know if it's, we can't hear you. Gerald, Gerald, can you hear us? Gerald, are you there?
He's dropped off the call. Looks like he's having a bad connection.
Okay, so it's not only in Zambia we have bad connections. Let's see if Kiko is back with us. Let's Kiko, are you with us?
Yeah, sure, I'm back. And,
okay. You need to show you want to show your slide, or?
Yeah, that would be great if I can do that.
Okay, so please share your slide with, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm able to share my slides.
Okay, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. So I already introduced myself, and I also already mentioned what I was going to talk about concerning this question: what can be done to support and increase the role of enablers in Dar es Salaam to enable Tanzania to attract more impact venture capital funds to the country. So I've done some research, and there are some things which I've found out some other ecosystems are doing, and there will be best case practices. But also we have been doing them here in Tanzania, and they have been effectively working some of these options. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now with regard to what can be done to make our work and our ecosystem in Tanzania thrive. So the first one, as I mentioned, like make it easy to be discovered. In terms of one thing I realized when I was doing my research is the global figures and the local figures, there is a very big discrepancy. For instance, I have seen some statistics from UNESCO which show there are only 31 hubs, for instance, in Tanzania. But based on our local one-stop shop map, it shows we have more than 52 tech hubs in Tanzania, and that is, I'll share the link to where you can find this data concerning our local one-stop shop, which is a map prepared by Human Development Innovation Fund. But now the program has been taken over by Funguo program, and also it is a work which was done in collaboration with One Map Development Tanzania. It's a startup organization, but it has done a pretty good job. And I will share the link later for you to go, and all other stakeholders also who have not been because it's an open source, who have not included their activities there. They'll be able also to share in the ecosystem so that they can be visible and they can be found in one place. It will be easy even for outsiders, foreigners, when they come and they look for players and actors in our ecosystem. It will be easy for them to find them all from the same place. So I'll share the link to that open map. So I was talking like for the global statistics, not just that, there is also a statistics with global startup index. There is a global startup index which is run by a startup brand and a startup brink, I mean, and it shows that there are only 10 local startups actually in Tanzania, which is not true. There are more than that. So what I realized is Tanzanian actors and players are not making themselves easy to be found, first locally, but also in the global arena. For instance, for the Go Startup Ecosystem Map, which is prepared by Startup Brink, it's an open source also, just like the other one I mentioned, the local one-stop shop. And all actors and players can go there themselves and enter their informations. But also for enablers, hubs, and incubator and accelerators, it shows there is only one accelerator in Tanzania, which is ANZA, which is found in Arusha, which is not true. Actually, there are so many startups hubs which are found in Dar es Salaam. So people from outside, when they look for statistics and when they try to find out information about Tanzania, they won't find this information because they are not out there. People are doing things, but they are not make these their activities easily to be found. But also Christian made a comment previously that he was trying to Google for what is happening in Tanzania, and then you could find nothing that is of significance. So it's the same problem. So what I'm encouraging here is to make it to be found. Use this one-stop shop, of which I'm going to share the link, but also the startupbrink.com. You can also go there for eating both for startups, but also for enablers like startups hubs and technology incubators and accelerators. So I would really encourage that. But another thing is instead of concentrating these are ecosystem activities and ecosystem building in just Dar es Salaam, what I have realized when I was checking in a startup global index, the country which are ranking higher, which are in top 100, they all have more than one city that these activities are happening. And for Tanzania, they have been concentrated in Dar es Salaam, which is not a good thing. For instance, Dar es Salaam is in the it ranks 724 in the global startup index, but that is because any other ecosystem that have been recognized outside of Dar es Salaam. So it is standing alone. But if as a country we collaborate and make this like we do this together, it will be easy for the country to be visible out there. And the higher we rank, the easier to be for investors to find and identify players in Tanzania. So I would really encourage this also to have this startup ecosystem built in multiple cities. I mentioned Buni Hub here because they are like a hub of hubs. So they could do a pretty great job for making sure these startup ecosystem are built in all big cities in Tanzania to start with. And also
Najua unaweza kuzima hiyo nini feni.
How are you feeling, Mama?
Jana, can you please turn off your microphone? Tina. Okay, Kiko, please continue.
Yeah, sure. For Buni also can work with Funguo program, because they also have the program to help these startups hubs establish themselves and thrive. So I would really encourage for public institution like Buni, which is under COSTECH, but also Funguo program, to see how they can enable startup ecosystem in other cities. But also the startup ecosystem which are already in Tanzania, are already in Dar es Salaam, and they are doing well, they could replicate what they are doing and expand the operation to all these other cities in Tanzania, but also collaboration among startup ecosystem from different regions. That one also is very recommended based on my research and what I've found out when I was doing research for this presentation. But another thing which is very important point, because when investors come, they want to find these startups investable, like investment ready. So we cannot do this if there is no way to bridge between when they have the ideas and when they are investable by the VC. So they need to be a bridge in between. And I'm suggesting these are 3 points. Local micro VC, I found it working very effectively in other startup ecosystem, which can also work here in Tanzania. For instance, India, I was doing research with India. They have micro VC, which are working very well from domestic investors. This can be done in Tanzania. I know there are no lack of people who would invest small amount in micro VC that could invest in our local startups, so that we could at least take them to a seed stage or series A. But I prefer series A because by then startup will have who can negotiate from a position of strength, and they can retain. They will be less diluted, but also in terms of power, because we are talking about impact and social tech startups, which are supposed to have a focus in impact, but a financial return. But if investors take a big chunk and have a bigger power, that means they won't have the power to maintain the impact that they are up to. So that's why it's very important to delay the valuation and the dilution. But another point also, crowdfunding, to consider crowdfunding and partnership funding mode. I know time is running out, so I'll go fast here. But partnership funding mode, we are actually trying this with Tautic, and we'll be pioneering this. Everything is in place. So right now we are preparing the startup founders so that they can take advantage of this model. But also crowdfunding, we are also piloting a kind of different way of crowdfunding based on our situation in Tanzania and Africa at large. Most people will be difficult to get them just give money. So as Tautic, we are pioneering e-commerce based royalty crowdfunding, which makes it risk-free for investors, but also it provides non-diluted capital to the startups. So I won't go deeper in these, but these are options which startup ecosystem in Tanzania and Africa at large can consider. And one last point is concerning exit options, because for instance, for stock market here and capital market in Tanzania is still very small. And the case is the same for most of African countries, even Kenya, which is doing very well now, but their capital market is still very small. So we really need to consider disruptive exit options other than the traditional IPO and merger and acquisitions. I've seen in some countries and some ecosystem, they have started experimenting with revenue-based exit financing. And in some countries, for instance, in Kenya, actually, there is I was talking to one of our investors there, and actually they are considering this. The investment in Kenya, actually, they are considering if they could liquidate based on a revenue-based exiting financing. So I see it has potential also in Tanzania. I've been doing research on this with locals here, and they'll be more than willing actually to participate if they had these options. So it's time to open these options and capitalize on the potential of young people who are in Tanzania right now, but also the global market which could open if our startup ecosystem was breeding great startups. So I know I've been going very fast, but I was also trying to catch up with time. And that's it for now.
Thank you so much.
And thank
Kiko.
you very much. All right.
I'll let you speak a little bit longer than we had scheduled, because I think what the information that you provided was quite important information, and I think it was important that that message were reaching outside of Tanzania for impact investors interested in investing in Tanzania. So thank you so much for these introductory remarks, Kiko Kiwanga. Shall we try and go back to Gerald, Mgezi, David, to finalize your presentation? And if so, hopefully this time the connection will keep working. So over to you, David. Did he manage to log up back on, Peter?
No, I don't think he's here.
So there's a serious problem with the internet connection. What about Anne Swady? Did she manage to connect?
Swady, no.
Okay, so that's a pity, but I think we are fortunate to have two great speakers with us that gave, I think, a sufficient element to move on to part two, which is an opportunity for those of you who have decided to spend the late afternoon with us to learn about the impact investing ecosystem in Tanzania, to raise questions. So if by any chance Peter Gerald, he managed to get back on, let me know, so he can also be part of the debate. Okay.
Okay.
So anyone has a question, please raise your hand and introduce yourself briefly, and keep the question as short as possible, so we can have as many people intervening and asking questions as possible. And also the presenters, if you can keep your answers fairly brief, so that we can touch as many topics and issues as possible over the next 25 minutes. So please go ahead if anyone has any questions. Okay, while people are thinking, so let me start by asking a question. So you just feel free to share the questions between the two of you. So the first thing that I wanted to raise with you is the fact that Uganda and Tanzania, they seem to both have, they have only achieved one SDG each. But at the same time, they report significant challenges in respectively 9 and 11 of the SDGs. What is the main reason for this, and what can the impact investing ecosystem do to get Tanzania back on track, especially since traditional funding for social causes in the ESC region remains inadequate? Anyone want to attempt answering that question?
Well, John Godbeck has got their hand raised.
Okay, so John, please go ahead.
This was actually for a different question. So, so if anybody wants to answer the question that was proposed by Christian first.
No, that's fine, John. Go ahead.
Okay, no. So my question is more about existing companies in Tanzania, such as SMEs, not small companies, medium-sized companies, trading companies, small trading companies. What are they looking for other than funding? I mean, what would help them? Because the key to creating the local ecosystem is having more people with money there in Tanzania. And so how do you create this basically class of entrepreneurs that, you know, that are not the few existing billionaires that are there, and creating a general middle class of entrepreneurs? What's needed, I guess, is the question.
You're both welcome to answer the questions from two different perspectives, if you want to. If you don't, you just tell me pass and we move on.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So starting with your question, Christian, I think one of the things that we need, if you look at the statistics in terms of how much capital that's coming, private capital in particular, coming to Tanzania, you'd see that we're still much at the leg of the total funding that comes to the region. If you look at the private equity and the venture capital money that's coming to East Africa, for the past 5 years, Tanzania attracted around 17% of all the money. Speaking of $2.5 billion. So, and one of the major issues that we see in the market as we speak now is majority of capital that is coming to Tanzania, probably to unlock some of these opportunities in SDGs and startups that are coming up with very innovative solutions, whether it's in healthcare or in agri, is most of this money which comes to the market is international money. And for that reason, they tend to ignore small tickets. So there's a huge mismatch between the demand and supply on the ticket sizes. So if you look at any traditional, international capital provider, will probably want to look at opportunities, say, from $500,000 and beyond. And you find the majority of these small businesses, startups in particular, looking at probably the pre-seed and seed stage. So that's one of the things that we see in the market, and that's one of the areas that we probably want to address. I think Kiko mentioned about having micro VC funds locally that will probably take up small tickets. It's one of the reasons why we even set up the Angel Network in 2018 to see if we could bridge that early stage funding gap and to prep these companies for international money. So that's one of the things that we see actually happen in the market as a major obstacle. But on the flip side of it, we can look at it as an opportunity if we may want to do more tickets. What startups need in the market, and small businesses in particular. So one thing that you'd see is actually Tanzania has been largely dominated by small and medium enterprises for many years. And as we speak now, I think the stats talk about 3.5 to 5 million small and medium enterprises in Tanzania. But with the recent, change of thinking and, all this importation of the Silicon Valley model thinking, and everyone is rushing into thinking as a startup rather than an SME, with whatever definition that we use in the market. But to me, I think SMEs remain to be largely unfunded, and the type of things that they need beside funding, as what was asked, I think one is the technical support, especially around building these companies to be investor ready. Kiko, I think, mentioned about the number of startup hubs that we have in the market. Actually, I think is in the north of 60 hubs that we have across the country, and 70%, as you said, are actually based in Dar. But the major challenge is most of these hubs do not give a good number of investable opportunities. So all these guys go to these hubs, and by the time they graduate, say after 3 months of any incubation or acceleration program, they're still far from being investor ready. So that's one of the areas that we need to look at. So apart from funding, I think one thing that we need is to see what can we do, first of all, to make these companies be investor ready. Second, I think is the mentorship, which is largely missing. Unfortunately, majority of successful entrepreneurs in Tanzania are very far detached from the ecosystem, and they're not providing as much mentorships as we need in the market, especially for small business owners. Because what we see is, even if you provide money to these guys, if there's not enough mentorship for them to understand the journey of being a successful entrepreneur, I think they always have challenges on. And then lastly, I think is things around coaching, which is 100% different from mentorship. So mentorship is actually getting people who are probably in the similar journey, not necessarily technical individuals, who could share their success stories, and change the culture of entrepreneurship in the market. And coaching is get people, especially intermediaries, who can handhold these small businesses from their earliest stage of ideation into a stage where they're ready to come to the market and launching, and probably be ready for funding at the later stage. These are my 2 cents.
Okay, I think they were very great answers, Kiko. Unless you want to, I will open up the floor for further questions. Any further questions? Okay, maybe I'll go. One thing that struck me is that East Africa has recorded, as you also alluded to, the largest share of blended finance transaction across the continent. Many investors in the region are leveraging concessional capital, blended finance, and technical assistance facilities to deploy the capital. Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania have been the most preferred investment countries, accounting for 32, 22, and 21% of the total transactions, respectively. But is Tanzania not underperforming, given the fact that Tanzania's GDP is around $55 billion, and with a population of 55 million people, whereas Uganda is only $27 billion its GDP and a population of 42 million people? So what is Uganda doing that Tanzania is not yet doing, or is in the process of doing, is my question.
Okay, interesting. I think I can go for that. I think Kiko may add as well if you want to do that. What we have seen is probably Uganda not necessarily doing any magical things if you have to compare to Tanzania. Unlike Kenya, I would admit that Kenya has been moving faster than any other player in the region. If you look at the ecosystem in Kenya, probably they've been in a position to prep the market for this type of capital and resources to flow to their market. Kenya has been open for a while, despite everything that happens in the country. So Uganda, I think if you were to compare to Tanzania, despite the stats that you shared, I think we have had issues when it comes to our policy, especially in the past 5 years, which I think gave other countries a leverage above us, especially in attracting more businesses, investment in resources. So it's not necessarily that Uganda did much if you compare to Tanzania, but Tanzania didn't do well within the same period of time. That led Uganda probably have an opportunity to much faster than Tanzania. We have had a lot of I would say negative trends in many aspects of the economy, in the overall business environment for the past few years, which unfortunately didn't place Tanzania as an attractive capital destination if you had to compare to all these other markets. So I wouldn't say Uganda has the best business environment in the region. I would pick Rwanda probably, but I think they were just in a position that was much way better in terms of proximity to Kenya. In Tanzania didn't take up the position because I think we had issues with our policy direction in the past few years.
Okay, thank you for that. Peter, I can see there's something in discussion. Are there anyone raising any questions in the discussion?
Oh yeah, so from Brandon. So the question reads, are there any successful micro VC funds currently operating in Tanzania? Yeah, so what we do, I think I mentioned in my earlier talk, we don't have as we speak, we don't. So that's the reason why we took an initiative a year ago to set up a $5 million, which you term as a micro VC fund that we are currently raising. And we plan to have our first close in June next year. And probably we're going to be a maiden micro VC fund in Tanzania to start investing. So we are raising now. And hopefully if we manage to successfully close, we probably start investing next year. So the angel network, we largely the only angel network in the market officially, which is also has had issues, especially when it comes to attracting more members and for the members to cut checks for all these startups. One of the major challenges we have seen is the successful, whether entrepreneurs as executives who in the market that would probably be potential members to the network made money in their traditional industries. And they tend to probably to be very wary of all these new business models that they see with the startups coming into the market. So they don't understand the business models and they don't understand the risks. They don't understand the potential. So they're very reluctant to cut checks for small business. So we still have major issues when it comes to the so-called missing middle financing in Tanzania. Yeah, so but to respond to your question, no, as we speak, but hopefully in the next few months, we might probably have our first micro VC fund here. And the rest of all the VC funds that you see investing in Tanzania are mostly based in Nairobi, looking after the region. We had the equity, which is a Dutch-funded impact investor, who had an office in Dar, but unfortunately they closed their office and moved to Nairobi, Kenya. So currently, every guy that you see is flying in, flying out to do deals here.
I think it was Kiko who talked about crowdfunding, but what you have not mentioned so far is the potential for diaspora funding to finance social challenges. Are you reaching out to the Tanzanian diaspora to help you raise the funds for this micro venture capital fund?
Yeah, so as we're speaking now is, first of all, I think I mentioned, I think Kiko mentioned the idea they're trying to work on around crowdfunding using the e-commerce sort of business model. So for us, we have decided to go gung-ho with an equity crowdfunding platform. And of course, we launched early this year, but we didn't take up any campaign because we wanted to be within the context of the regulatory framework, because we don't have any regulations or crowdfunding. So we have had discussions with the regulator, the capital markets authorities, and they have recently given us the green light to proceed. So we're probably going to launch our first campaign, which will be on a crowdfunding platform. I think I shared the link on the chat. In terms of diaspora, we work closely with the diaspora. I can share the link as well. We are currently building up a diaspora investment fund, which will manage on the feedback of it. And one of the asset classes that with the investment fund will investing in is the VC. So we are reaching out to Tanzanians living in diaspora
just to put things into context, Tanzanians in the diaspora are sending home around $500 million yearly. So we are looking at a number on how much we can tap into the money to put into a fund. But largely 80–70% of our raise is actually on institutional investors, and a very small portion is for the retail investors. So yes, we are looking into Tanzanian diaspora, but majority of them probably want to do much more a collective investment scheme for small tickets.
All right, there happens to be another question from your network, and it reads, what's the reason why everyone is moving to Nairobi? How are the investment policy in Tanzania and tax incentives?
Kiko, you want to chip in? I don't want to be speaking all by myself. Okay,
but Mr. David, he's there as well. Is he with us, Peter, David? Mr. David? No, he's not back. Okay, so go ahead, Salom, go ahead.
I think one of the reasons why everybody is moving to Nairobi, as I said earlier, I think Nairobi has a much more mature ecosystem, in terms of deal sourcing and many other factors that has put Nairobi at a much, much more faster pace than Tanzania. Of course, Kenya remains to be the largest economy in the region. I think they've done well in terms of skills and talent, which are among critical factors to attract capital. And in the end, I think the government in general has been very open to attract capital from all corners of the world. Which unfortunately we haven't done much in Tanzania. If you look at the efforts around building the ecosystem in Tanzania and building enough pipelines of deals, probably we started very few years ago, unlike Kenya, which probably dated as much more older than we have. In terms of investment policy, I think Tanzania has relatively much stronger investment policy past 5 years. And we saw that we are attracting probably much more FDIs to Tanzania than any other market past 5 years. And unfortunately, over the past 5 years, the government direction was different. They were trying to promote more government-driven sort of investment. And for that reason, there are a lot of negative sentiments around attracting international money and investors coming to Tanzania. So the environment and the policy was very unpredictable. Decisions were made overnight. And for that reason, I think the overall investment climate was not pretty much attractive. So we have the former policy, which dates back many years, and now the government is actually reviewing the policy and the act that will probably open up more investments coming to Tanzania. In terms of tax incentives, we really don't have specific tax incentives, especially for startups or for impact investments for private equity in that matter. We have tax incentives, yes, from sector to sector through the what we call the Tanzania Investment Center, which is sort of government scheme to bring in investments in Tanzania. So if your investment is registered through the center, and if it's an international investment, which is worth more than $500,000, and then you attract a couple of tax incentives. And as well, there are sectors that have tax incentives as well, especially in agriculture, pharmaceutical, and the likes. So we have sector by sector basis tax incentives. And then I think there's a question around pension funds, a part of fundraising target institutional investor partners for your fund. If so, any thoughts on how you lobbied for the participation? So this is interesting. So I personally worked for a pension fund before. And one of the challenges that we have is we are not targeting first of all pension funds now as among the target institutional investors. One of the reasons is all the pension funds that we have in Tanzania, actually now we have two. We used to have 5 pension funds. So they were merged and we now have two large pension funds, one for the private sector, another one for the public sector. And they all invest under the investment regulations which were provided by the central bank. And these regulations categorically say pension funds are not allowed to invest in venture capital as an asset class. So they clearly say that. So there's no way you can raise money from pension funds now as institutional investors if you're setting up a venture capital. For them as an asset class, they're not allowed to do that. So we are not targeting the pension funds now as we speak. Back to you, Christian.
Peter, any more questions in the chat? We still have 5 more minutes.
No, there are no questions.
Okay, I don't know, Kiko, I wanted to ask a question, but I can't see him on a list. So maybe before I raise that question to him. Apparently, corporates in East Africa are increasingly moving away from ad hoc based corporate social responsibility to a more strategic and sustainable investment approach. So in Tanzania, apparently oil and gas and mining and professional service companies are the major players in corporate givings. Are they also the major drivers of the social impact investing space in Tanzania to deliver sustainability programs that will lead to the attainment of the SDGs? I don't know if Kiko or Salom, which of you have a view on it. You talked about institutional investors, but here I'm talking more about larger companies and what role that they play, because they seem to be playing a quite important role in some of the other East African countries. So I wonder whether that's also the case in Tanzania. I
wouldn't probably pick the sectors that you did, especially from the impact investment and in participation in the ecosystem perspective. What we have seen, players who have been quite much active in the market are telcos. So telcos have been very much active. Actually, the largest telco company has partnered with a local startup hub to run acceleration programs in the market for preparing some of the startups to be investor ready. And of course, they have also been involved largely to provide some prize money for startup competitions, which of course is not the sustainable way to do that. But those are the ones that have been heavily involved. They have also opened up the infrastructure for startups to use to build their businesses as well. Such as the use of the APIs for mobile money, if a startup wants to build the payment system gateway. But we've also seen banks as well, commercial banks coming to the market as well, trying to see how much they can do, moving from CSR probably to social investments. But they haven't done much. One of the things that we have been trying to push in Tanzanian market, and me in particular, speaking to some of these corporates, is to see if they're willing to set up corporate venture capital arms within their corporate structures. I think it will be easy for them to allocate a percentage of their capital yearly to invest into impact ventures in Tanzania. We are yet to see that. So the major player that remains to be the provider and supporter, to be honest, is the donor or development partners who have been providing grant money mostly for some of these initiatives that we see in the market. Otherwise, I think oil and gas probably is too early to say that, because we are yet to see any oil and gas commercializing their investments as yet in Tanzania. It's only now the government is in discussion to launch the first.
Okay.
Mining, I think they do a lot of stuff just around the local communities where they serve, but not necessarily as a key player or provider of impact money to the market.
Okay. Peter, any further questions? There's, I think, time for just 2 more questions.
I think Kiko should be able to join us through. Is it Margaret? Margaret.
Okay. Anyone wants to?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, go ahead, Kiko.
So I wanted because I had a different contribution years before I was disconnected, concerning the crowdfunding, because we have been doing some research with respect to how people would respond and would participate if we had crowdfunding campaigns in Tanzania, and then we realized the idea was still very new and most people were reluctant to participate, although they were investing their money in some other projects, because I was talking to people who are already investing in some projects, especially in timber and agriculture. So, but they were reluctant to venture into these, which seemed unconventional and something new to them. So we at Tautic, we are pioneering this e-commerce based royalty crowdfunding that they especially for SMEs and NGOs, is kind of a partnership for the development goals. The way I would put the project is to get more private sectors and to get involved in financing startups, because when they involve in this in our platform, for instance, which will be running, we call them cause sourcing campaigns. When they'll be sourcing from our platform, then all the money that will be charged as fee will be going to finance a specific projects of their choice. And we saw some SMEs who were willing to do that, because actually it was involving no risk to them, and they will still stand a chance to have a return if those startups actually succeed. So we saw those potentials also. So we're trying to exploit other possibilities to make the startups especially early startups in Tanzania being bridged from the pre-seed stage to seed stage. So I wanted to add that. I think I should end there, and then if there is another question, I can answer.
Okay, Peter, any last question amongst from the audience?
All right, so this one is from your network, and it reads, Salum, are you raising funds for your fund? Is the fund registered in Tanzania?
Yes, yeah, we are currently raising 5 million, and the fund will be registered offshore. So we are currently exploring between Mauritius and Dubai, but it will be offshore registered. And yes, we are raising 5 million.
Okay, any other questions, Peter?
Okay, so that's it.
Okay, let me just one last burning question for myself. According to the Africa Venture Philanthropic Association's report on East Africa that came out last year, they mentioned that there are 62 sustainability-aligned fund managers in Tanzania, 18 DFIs, 39 corporate social investors, 19 family foundations, 11 other foundations, and 2 angel networks. So the question is that apparently philanthropy in East Africa comprises both faith-based, individual, community, family, and corporate philanthropy. And the philanthropic space is growing in East Africa, especially in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, driven by ecosystem supports organizations which has focused on strengthening policy advocacy and government engagement. What has been done to move attention away from venture philanthropy towards social impact investing, which are more financially sustainable in the long term? Anyone has any views on that?
First of all, I'm not sure with the information that was shared in the report. I don't think we have such many players in the Tanzanian market, honestly. But what we've seen happening recently, and I was personally involved by UNDP to set up the Funguo program, which Kiko also mentioned, is almost a transition from a previous all donor funded program, which came to an end June this year, and transitioning into a Funguo program. So within the Funguo program, one of the components is an impact fund, which of course initially the design was 25 million. And the fund will do both. So they will do grant partly, and they will do commercial instruments commercially as a way to provide long-term potential returns to the fund to sustain it. So this is one of the initiatives that we see in the market, where we're going to be moving slowly from the traditional, I use the word donor sort of funding of some of these initiatives, to try to commercialize some of these initiatives to be much more market driven and help them to be self-sustaining in the longer time. So that's one of the things that we see. Actually, from the Funguo program, the fund element, I think 60% will be allocated for purely commercial investing, with a potential exit from some of these initiatives. And of course, any proceeds from some of these exits will be brought back to fund to sustain it in the longer time, even in absence of donor funding. So this is one of the initiatives that we see in the market. Otherwise, I think it's just a lot of other things are now open for discussion. I've seen the Swiss Embassy recently launching a program where they'll be launching a core fund. They will be putting 1 million euros, and a private fund manager is supposed to put in 1 million euros as well. So it's going to be a 2 million fund for Series A investment in Tanzania, which I think will also help to move from the traditional sort of philanthropic thinking much more into commercially driven for sustainability. Those are two initiatives that which I can remember quickly from the back of my head for now.
And that's coming from the Swiss embassy and not from the Swiss Development Fund Institution?
No, from the Swiss Development Agency, sorry.
Okay, I understand. Okay, great. Okay, thanks a lot. I think we'll move on to the conclusion, Peter. So over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Christian. And thank you everyone for taking your time to join us. My intervention is very simple. So many businesses within the region have been failing to break the glass ceiling and go beyond a certain limit as far as growth and scaling is concerned. Now, our time-to-time interactions with these businesses have led to the revelation that the problem is not just limited to access to funding. There are a number of issues that stand in the way of startups as well as SMEs. So one of the core issues inhibiting further growth is due to the fact that these businesses within the region lack a guiding tool for internal capacity building in order to help them clearly identify and set motivations regarding environmental as well as social outcomes. Now, why is setting motivations regarding environmental and social outcomes important? I recall that Mr. Salom raised a very important point. The issue of enterprises being able to distinguish themselves as well as identify as social enterprises is actually key. Now, it is for this region that 4IP Group, together with its Zambian counterpart, Impactpreneurs Africa, have put up together a tool that helps businesses along their journey of becoming impact capital investment ready. And this tool is actually the ESG toolkit for impact enterprises. This tool is actually a deliberate approach towards helping businesses become investment ready, as you have heard me mention. Now, this is a 7-step toolkit that we have seen help a number of businesses from just being startups to being able to overcome hurdles impeding their growth and ultimately be able to raise capital. So I'll be happy to engage and work with you to see to it that we get to help startups as well as SMEs in Tanzania be able to align themselves for impact capital. And at the same time, allow me to take this time to announce to you that 4IP Group shall be hosting the second e-pitching session in December this year. So it would actually be great to have a number of Tanzanian SMEs get to participate and pitch during that e-pitching session. So for the record, for the recorded file of this session, we're going to share it with you via our YouTube channel, and we'll also be able to post the link via LinkedIn. Once again, thank you so very much. Shall keep in touch. Christian?
Yes, once again, thank you to Gerald, even though the connection was very difficult. And especially thanks to Kiko Kiwanga, the founder of Taoki Launchpad, and to Mr. Salom Awad, the CEO of SSC Capital, for your very insightful remarks and presentations. We very much appreciate that. And we thank everyone who was with us in the live session, and to all those of you who will watch the recording on our YouTube channels. Wishing you all a pleasant evening and see you at our next event. Bye-bye.